Welcome, welcome. This is our boarding open day webinar hosted by UWCSEA in Singapore. I'll just give everyone a few minutes to join. And while we're waiting for some of our attendees today, I'm going to invite you to have a glimpse of a day in the life of boarding on each of our campuses. These are 2 short videos, and then I'll come back on to give you an overview of today's session. So good afternoon again, everyone. Welcome to our Boarding Open Day webinar from UWCSEA in Singapore. I'm Malika Ramdas. I'm Director of Admissions at the college, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about this afternoon's program and what to expect, and a few protocols for this session, and then we'll jump right in. So today you will hear from members of our boarding community. This is very much an opportunity for you to get a feel of what it's like to be a boarder at UWC in Singapore. And most of our presentation will really be a set of conversations between different members of our boarding community. Our Director of Residential Life at the college will be delivering part of the presentation, and she will tell you about what it's like, what the expectations are, how boarding fits into the wider college community, and who you can expect to interact with as a boarding student here at the college. We will also then tell you a bit about what life is like in the residential community from the perspective of some of our current boarders. So you'll get to experience some conversations, some students in interaction with each other, and they're actually coming to you live from different parts of our boarding communities on both our campuses. You'll hear a little bit from a conversation between a house parent and a student about the type of support available in the community to a boarder. And we will hopefully also have a parent dialing in to give you a bit of a parent perspective on having a student in boarding here at the college. We will wrap up with a moderated question and answer session where you're welcome to ask us questions related to boarding at the college, as well as any questions related to admissions, particularly for boarding applications. So during this week, we've got not only this boarding webinar today, but also our high school open days on both our campuses. And if you are dialing in from Singapore or are going to be in Singapore this week and would like to experience the campus on the campus in person, you're still able to sign up for those high school open days via our admissions website. So we would love to see you, and you also have the opportunity to have an optional boarding tour before the program and the rest of the session on campus, which will include a campus tour as well. So that just a little plug for our high school open days this week as well. So today's session is being recorded, and this recording will be available on our website in another day or two. So look out for that if you'd like to revisit any of the content or recommend it to any of your friends who couldn't attend today but may be interested in boarding at UWC for their children. And one last thing from me, if you'd like to listen or follow along with today's presentation in a different language other than English, you can activate the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom screen and choose the language of your preference. So once again, that's the button at the bottom of your Zoom screen called Show Captions, where you can choose your preferred language and see the transcript of what we're saying in your preferred language. Finally, I think I forgot to mention that you can place your questions that you have in the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and you're welcome to submit questions at any time during the webinar as well as during the actual Q&A session at the end. So with that, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Marcel Campbell, who is our Director of Residential Life across both Dover and East campuses. Over to you, Marcel.
Thanks so much, Malika. Good morning, good afternoon, or evening, depending where you are in the world at this time. My name is Marcel Campbell, and I am the Director of Residential Life here at UWCSEA. I'll be facilitating this webinar, and we hope it will provide you with all the information you need to make a good choice for your family as you embark on the adventure of joining a boarding community. A very brief introduction about my team and I. I've lived in the boarding house here at East for the past 11 years. I've lived in boarding houses for longer than I've lived in my own house in my adult life. In fact, I've spent 2 decades living and working in boarding communities. I'm joined by my husband, James, who's also been working in boarding communities for a long time, and our 3 daughters who've spent all of their lives living in a boarding community too. In Tampines House on East Campus, we have a total team of 38 pastoral staff who work alongside our operational teams to take care of the boarders. We have 5 resident house parents who live in the building 24 hours a day, who partner with 4 day staff to take on the primary pastoral care role of our boarding students. Each boarder is part of one of 4 house families, led by a team consisting of at least 1 resident staff member and 1 of our day team members. Our grade 11 and 12 boarders are divided into 3 house families, while our grade 8, 9, and 10 boarders are together in the 4th house family. In the 3 boarding houses at Dover campus, we have a total of 39 pastoral staff, including 6 resident house parents who partner with 5 day staff to take care of our Dover boarders. Each boarder is assigned to one of the 3 houses, with our grade 8 to 10 boarders living together in one house and our grade 11 and 12 boarders living together in the other 2. Boarding truly is a passion of mine, as I believe that nowhere else can young people develop the skills and qualities that they do in boarding in any other environment. It truly is something special. In fact, residential life is at the heart of every UWC community in all 18 colleges around the world, and is the essence of Kurt Hahn's vision that bringing together young people from all backgrounds and walks of life would result in an utterly transformational experience. And that is what we offer here in boarding at UWC, extending all of the 5 learning areas you would have heard about in our high school and middle school webinars: challenge, transformation, preparation for life, not just university, and significant learning outside of the classroom. It isn't simply an option for families who cannot live in Singapore and want to send their children to UWCSEA. Rather, it has to be an active choice and an active buying into the community's principles and the mission of UWC. Our boarding philosophy is very much centered around the UWCSEA mission. It's not centered around providing an environment where academics is the sole focus and the driving force to what we do. To the contrary, we value students who engage meaningfully in areas outside of the classroom and in particular, engage meaningfully in the boarding community, because in that way, our community members develop the skills and qualities that will enable them to be successful in all areas of life. And most importantly, develop a motivation for engaging in the world around them to the benefit of others. We may challenge some students and families' perspectives on how much time, energy, and consideration should be invested in academic studies and the grades that we expect. We place far more weight on participation and leadership shown in areas outside of the classroom than on a student's final IB score. And we ask that prospective families take this into consideration when applying and buy wholeheartedly into our ethos as part of our community so that their child gets the most out of this experience while they're with us. A key characteristic of our community, and one that has an impact on admissions, is our deliberate creation of a diverse community, where we have students of a variety of backgrounds, cultures, passions, talents, interests, personality types, and ways of thinking. And as you can imagine, with so many young people from such different cultures and walks of life, this can present its challenges to someone living in this dynamic environment. And it is in the resolution of those challenges on a daily basis where the learning and the magic of boarding happens. To guide all the members in the community in navigating these challenges and developing lifelong habits that contribute towards us achieving the UWC mission, we have the 9 principles of the Boarding Manifesto. As you can see, the emphasis is on caring for others, caring for the environment, and acting in the interests of others and not ourselves. In total, our boarding community across both campuses has around 340 students, approximately a third of whom are scholarship students who are selected through national committees in their home countries in a needs-blind, merit-based process, both providing them with opportunities for an international education that many would not be able to access otherwise. Our community has young people from every continent. Currently, 58 nationalities are represented in Dover boarding and 54 are represented in the East boarding community. We have a guideline that boarders don't share with a roommate of the same nationality, and this ensures that they're exposed to new cultures, backgrounds, languages on a daily basis. Our 2 boarding campus houses are different in design, but the fundamentals of developing positive relationships based on warmth, trust, and care, and balanced with high expectations and a commitment to the UWC mission, is the same across both campuses. Here to share our student perspective today, we've invited 2 of our students from Dover boarding and 2 of our students from East boarding to join us. So first up, we have Galia and Mingi, who will be sharing their experience of the transition into the boarding community and what support is in place for our incoming students. Malika, there we go.
Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Gala. I joined UWC in grade 11, and right now I'm grade 12 at Dover UWCSEA, and I'm from Moldova.
Hi, I'm Mingi. I joined in grade 10 and I moved from Germany, and I'm also currently in grade 12 at Dover campus.
Welcome, guys. So Galia, could you tell us a little bit more about your experience of moving into Dover boarding and your first year in the house?
Of course. Well, before I arrived, there's a lot of things put in place for the new students to be able to connect with the community and specifically their roommates. Personally, I got sent the details of my new roommates and I was able to contact them, and we were able to share different thoughts, different values, talk about our new experience for next year when we're going to be roommates. So this really helped a lot with faster accommodating to the environment, to the new people, feeling not so scared when coming in and feeling like you don't know anybody. So that helped a lot. And also, as soon as I joined the school, I felt very, very welcomed. The orientation team is amazing, very helpful, not only in boarding, but also when it comes to how we get around in Singapore, because I'm sure a lot of boarders have never been able to get acquaintance to the country. So there have been a lot of activities, especially at the beginning of the year, that we were able to go around Singapore. They helped us with transportation and how it works, helped us with any questions that we had when it comes to phone numbers. So anything that's a requirement when it comes to Singapore. We were helped with a lot by the community. The boarding staff were helpful from the beginning, and to this day, I'm extremely, extremely grateful for them. If there's any questions, they're always there to help. They're very friendly and very eager to just be there for us. The whole environment has remained the same. There's a great support system for everyone here, and really genuinely so incredibly grateful that I'm able to experience this opportunity.
Thanks, Galia. And I know, Mingi, you were part of the orientation team this year. Do you want to give us a bit of insight into how the staff and students work to support the new students?
Yeah, sure. So before this year, I was on the orientation team last year as well. And I joined I joined the orientation team in 2023 because it was an amazing experience in terms of how it got the entire community to bond together, how we all got to learn the procedures and why everything is done the way it is, and how to navigate in this. For me, it was a completely new environment because grade 10 was my absolute first year to do with boarding whatsoever. So in terms of the orientation process itself, we started with icebreaker sessions for everybody to get to know each other and familiarize each other with everybody in the house across grades. As I said, give them an overview of why things are done the way they are and what sort of routines you followed. And in terms of what the students did for each other, the new students, I noticed that they formed groups with each other very quickly and nobody was excluded. And one area where that especially would have helped is in support against homesickness, because I know that is an issue for a lot of new students coming in. There is always going to be someone there, either one of the new students, one of the staff, or one of the rotation team to help against that. And otherwise, the older students and staff, of course, had the opportunity to show, again, mirror this emotional support and defense against homesickness, and also in terms of academic and activities advice. Personally speaking, I didn't experience much homesickness in the first year in grade 10, but I did have some other family issues that I had to deal with that year. But of course, as I said, there were students and staff that would stick with me the entire time and made it a tolerable time despite the rough circumstances that I was going through.
Thanks, Mingi. And just both of you, do you have any advice for any students who'll be joining us new?
I feel like anyone that comes in should be ready to just take on to new opportunities and be as open-minded as possible. It is a very new environment for a lot of kids, especially when it comes to different backgrounds. It is a community made out of so many different people, so many different individuals that have such unique characteristics. So just the willingness to learn, being open-minded, and just being excited for everything that's coming your way.
I think the best thing to take with you to Dover boarding is an acceptance of change, because things are going to change, of course. Settling into your room is going to be a change. Throughout the year, there are going to be changes. And just being able to cope with that and being able to learn from every single one of those changes is going to make you fit right in here, because you never get bored, is what I've found.
I agree.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate you guys sharing that bit of your experience with our prospective families. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And we also have two students from East boarding with us today who are going to tell us a little bit more about the daily schedule, the routines, and the different activities to be involved in boarding. So Samaya and Hansen, can you guys introduce yourselves?
Yeah. So hi, my name is Hansen. I am in grade 11 this year, and I joined UWC East Campus last year in grade 10. Yeah, and this is my second year.
Yeah, and I'm Samaya, and I joined last year in grade 8, so I joined the same time as Hansen did, and I'm now currently in grade 9, and I'm from Bhutan.
Perfect. And so Samaya, you said you're in grade 9. So can you tell us a little bit more about the routine for the grade 8s and 9s?
Yeah, so in grade 8 and 9, you're going to be in the same corridor. So it's sort of like the same routine and schedule and like electronic curfews. But usually, since we live right next to school, we live in school, we just wake up before like school starts, so 8 a.m. But we have breakfast check-in at 7:45, so we get up before that. And last year I used to get up really early, but now I'm used to like getting ready quite quickly and like just hopping up to school classes. So I just like get ready in like 10 minutes. So I wake up at 7, then I go to school, have a normal school life, just living. And then at 3 p.m. is when school ends. And that's after that, we from 3 to 6, we have free time. So you can really just do whatever you want with that time. But some kids, like the IB students, they use that to study. But for me, I just chill and, read and stuff. But after that, we have dinner, then study time, which I think is very helpful to us because a lot of the kids here, they don't know how to manage their time well. So study time really gives us the time to like learn and like sit down and do all of our work. So that happens from 7 to 8:30, and that really helps us manage our time. Then we have our electronics curfew at 9, where we give in our phones. And at first, when I joined, I thought that was like really silly and like we really did not need that. But eventually, I realized like you don't need your like gadgets to like like live, because you can like use that extra time to like talk with your roommates in corridors and like just like build your community together, and also sleep, because we need that time to sleep to work. Yeah.
Thanks, Samaya. And Hanson, do you want to share how that looks a little different when you're in grade 11 and 12?
Yeah, of course. I would say that most of the school schedule and how it looks like would be similar, but a lot of emphasis in grade 11 and 12 is that house parents will give you more freedom and then help you build like independence and managing your own time. And more specifically, for example, there's no morning wake-up calls, so you have to wake up yourself, and if you don't, well, you're going to be late to breakfast. But that really helps you like build your independence and also manage your time better. Additionally, we don't have electronic curfews anymore, so we will have possession of our own electronic devices throughout the whole day. And at first, that is, I would say, challenging because compared to last year where you were disconnected from your phone, you have it for the whole night, and sometimes that could mean that you get distracted. But I think the electronic curfews from grade 8 all the way to grade 10 really helps you learn how to manage your time and your relationship with your devices. And when you transition into grade 11 and 12, that also really helps with how you manage your devices. Study time would also look different. The grade 11s in particular, we have our study times in the library, where grade 8 to 10s, they have it in common rooms in the boarding house. And grade 12s, they will get more freedom and have the choice of studying in their own rooms. Yeah, so that's the main differences. And the big emphasis is on independence and like managing your own time.
Perfect. And do you, both of you, want to share a little bit about some of the activities in the house, maybe some you or your friends have been involved in, and just give people a sense of what else goes on?
Yeah, so before you start school, we have orientation for the boarding new kids. So that really helps you like build your community, and like it really puts you into boarding life. But after that, school starts and it gets a bit hectic. You try to like find your place, but eventually the boarding house parents and your friends, they all really help you like become stable at school. And then after that, we have like a few activities that like really like we have like games sort of sometimes in the main halls, the places, and we just like how do I say, we'll just like hang out together, and it's like not compulsory most of the time, but like it's fun. And then sorry, we have this thing called Bintan, where it's the weekend away, so we leave Singapore and we go to Indonesia, and that just like we just chill and like hang out with our friends and like talk to people we haven't talked to in a long time, because like we're really like busy with our work, and we just like hang around and yeah, like just like live with your boarding friends, it really just helps. And we actually just came back from it yesterday, so it was really good. And yeah.
Yeah, and apart from like the big orientation and the Bantan trip once a year, there's also like regular activities every weekend and also every Tuesday. So every weekend we will have weekend trips, and every Tuesday is what we call Community Tuesday. So in the weekends, the boarding house would organize trips to some of like the more tourist destinations in Singapore, like Chinatown, Sentosa, etc., Marina Bay Sands, all that. And sometimes it's also something I am very interested in is small like bicycle trips. So sometimes we will cycle to a reservoir nearby or further to like parks, like East Coast Park, so Pasir Ris Park. And we also have a bike maintenance crew here in East Campus boarding. where we manage our own bicycles, and we have a system of like how we manage bikes, which is really interesting. But also we have community Tuesdays. So every Tuesday during study time from 7 to 8:30, students will get the choice to not study if their homework is all done prior and their studies all done. And the boarding house will organize activities, and students will be able to take that time and participate in activities and just have some fun, relax, and also connect more with other students in the community. And this would be things like arts and crafts, or sometimes it's like cultural specific activities. Like this week we have activities of like Pacific region, and also just general activities such as basketball, volleyball, etc. But it's a great way to balance your life with studies and also like well-being and physical activities at the same time.
Thank you so much, guys, for sharing a little bit more with our prospective families, and thank you for your time. Very much appreciated. Along with the important relationships with the boarders form with their peers through all the activities, they also form important relationships with the adults in the boarding community. The house parents, our day parents and BSCs, the housekeeping team, the medical team, the facilities team, and all the myriad of people here in the boarding houses to support them. So today also with us are James and Tessa, who will share about their relationship as a house parent and a student, as well as talk about what other support is in place to support our boarders. So could James and Tessa, could you introduce yourselves?
Hello, I'm Tessa. I'm from Ivory Coast in Guadeloupe, and I'm in grade 12 this year, which means I joined last year. So this is my second year in boarding now.
And I'm James. I'm from the UK. I've worked in boarding for many years, and I've been at East for 11 years.
Perfect. And Tessa, do you want to share a little bit about how James supports you as a house parent?
So just to start in general, there's just an amazing team of people here that just are here in general to support all of us. But more specifically, so James is my house parent, which means he's just the kind of the head of like my family in the boarding house. I'm a rambutan, proudly. But basically, James is kind of here to like parent me. I would say he's here as my parent figure. And what I like about the boarding house is that they really value relationships between students and like staff. James and I have a really strong relationship. I think it goes beyond like being like a relationship between staff and student. I think it's like kind of a friendship even. And they value like trust and just openness. And I've been really inclined to opening up to James about various things. So we have checkups regularly. So I think in grade 11, you have checkups every week. So after study time or like just after dinner, one time each week, you have like a 20-minute or like 15-minute meeting with your house parent. Just to discuss like how your week's going, like academics, just how you're feeling in general. And they just really like put an emphasis on just your well-being in general. And I think James has been very great with this with me, like specifically. Grade 11 has been a little challenging for me, but he has been there to make sure that it's a smooth process and that like anything I'm struggling with like is helped. We also have, so they also take care of, I mean, our well-being in general, but also our health. So every time you're sick, they make sure to like make sure you have everything you need with the clinic and your parents. And I think that their communication with the parents is amazing because as students being like studying overseas, it's not always easy. And communication is always a struggle, especially as someone who who is kind of sensitive. So James has always been there to reinforce communication between my parents and I when I have not been there to do that like very well. And so they really just value like communication to make sure that like everything you need is being said and heard from like both parties, so between you and parents, as well as just staff in school, so teachers, counselors, just like people like around you. Yeah, I don't really, but truly like they're here for the best interest of the students, and they really value the work, and they put in so much effort, and they truly know what they're doing. I trust James a lot. A lot. And I think he knows me more than anyone else in this boarding house, surprisingly. Maybe because I talk too much, but they're just really good listeners. They're like trained amazingly. They know what they're doing, and they also love what they're doing. So like bringing your children here is just know that they're in great hands. Like, yeah, they're really looked after, loved for, cared for. Yeah.
Thanks, Tessa. And James, can you share a little bit more about the house parents and the other adults in the community, form relationships with the students and ways they support them?
Sure, yeah, that'd be lovely. And yeah, I think Tessa caught a lot of important things. Number one, I think we have a really wide kind of network of adults, lots of different kinds of adults. And so if you think about sending your child off far away from home, you want to make sure they've got at least one person they can connect with. And I think our community gives that opportunity. We have staff in the boarding house who are from all over the world, all different walks of life, different personality types, you know? And I think that really gives everyone an opportunity to connect with someone. And I think that's a really important principle in the community. I think sometimes there are recurring issues that might come up, maybe things that parents like you are worried about, like the homesickness, or how is this kind of transition period, sharing with new people in a room, that kind of thing. And so we have a really good boarding counselor who works exclusively with the boarding students and is really an expert in working with precisely the kinds of difficulties that new students might face. I think we liaise really closely with high school, and while Marcel was correct in saying we're not an academic hothouse, that's not our sole focus. We're interested in the character development of the students and their holistic development. I do think that we care that they are setting themselves realistic goals academically, and that we help them and hopefully support them in achieving those goals. And I think the working with the rest of school is sort of like a key part of the house parent role. And it helps us to understand what's going on in all the different parts of a student's life. I would say also that the core staff who work in the boarding house, like Tessa summed it up very well. I think she stole some words actually that I was thinking of saying, which was good. That's fine. But like they do really genuinely care about the students, and I think it's very authentic in interaction, you know. And I think that if I was a parent, would be one of the most reassuring things, that the people who are surrounding my child care for the child first and foremost, and won't put their own personal matters ahead of the needs of the child. And I think in general, what that means is the community as a whole is its own support network. So the students are really good at taking care of the students as well, of coming to you and saying, I'm a bit worried about X, Y, or Z. Why don't you have a chat with them? And so it's kind of like a complex network of support that overall means that we feel quite secure and safe, and we feel that students who come here have the best opportunity to flourish. And the relationships we build are beautiful, you know, and are yeah, the foundation of everything else.
Thank you so much. It was good to see your guys' chemistry on screen.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you so much for sharing, and we're really grateful for your time today as well. And in taking care of young people, as James said, and as Tessa said, we have to have partnerships with the parents of our boarders. And by working in partnership, we can help the young people in our care thrive. We're fortunate enough to have the parent of a boarder join us today from somewhere outside of Singapore. And she'll be here to share just a little bit more insight on the experience of being a parent of a boarding student in our boarding community. So let's see Welcome to Priya. Oh, there you are. Good to see you.
Hi, Marcel. Hi, everybody. Hi, James. Good to see you all. Yeah,
Obviously you had, would you like to introduce yourself first?
of course. So I'm calling in from Bangalore. And I've been a parent of a boarder twice now, since my first one graduated from UWC East in 2020. And my Anushka, and my second one, Akshay, is currently in grade 11 and is a boarder. So it's been an amazing experience twice over. So as a parent, so thank you so much, Marcel, and I'm happy to be here to share, reflections from my side about both the experiences. So yeah.
That's great, Priya. And do you just want to share, like, how has boarding shaped your children and your family?
Oh, absolutely. So both my kids are quite distinct from each other. They're very different and very opposite to each other in many ways. So I got this privileged peek at how their uniqueness sort of flourishes in the boarding environment that you guys have created. Um, my older one joined when she was in grade 11, and now when I look back, it was a bit like putting her into the pool at the deep end. She had far less time than my second kid to adapt to being independent, being accountable for her own actions and decisions. And but the expertise of you and your team, it was evident in the way found her own unique way of coping by the end of the year. By class 12, I think she connected with started connecting with her own strengths. She found discipline. She learned how to manage time. And today she's in Babson in Boston and university. And the easy transition to university life was honestly thanks to the 2 years she spent as a boarder in UWC, I think from 2018 to 2020. So that was just incredible. I My second one, he joined earlier. My daughter sort of suggested to him that encouraged him to sign up. She enjoyed the experience so much she wanted her younger brother to join in even earlier. So he happily joined in grade 9. No, in grade 10 he became a boarder. In grade 9 he spent 1 year as a day scholar, and now it's been 2 years as a boarder with you, and I see how comfortable he is, how independent he is, how self-driven and disciplined he is, and I think it's just going incredibly well for me as a parent. Um, it's brought all of us closer, in fact, as a family, because now they have so much to share with me, and it's been this wonderful two-way exchange of learning, even as a parent. It's just been incredible. Yeah.
That's really good to hear. And obviously I was here for Anushka and Akshay at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. I do remember that. Yeah. 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 It's been a long time since we've gotten to, we've been on this journey with you. It's been so great. Yeah.
And a lot of parents wonder about how the communication between boarding and home works. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about how that feels from your side.
Oh, there's so many ways we can connect at any time. The team is so reachable for us as parents wherever we are. Uh, I I move around a lot, but I'm always comfortable with the knowledge that if I ever have to, that my Akshay can always reach me whenever he needs me at any time. That the team will make sure it happens, and they're reachable to me as well. Um, so emails, you know, z- just they're just a phone call away. They're just a text message away. And whenever I visit Singapore, it's like it's a reunion for me each time. I just walk in there, I get to see everyone. Um, so in terms of just being accessible, that hasn't been an issue for us at any level. It's just so easy to connect with everyone and to stay connected. Yeah.
Perfect. And any other insight or any other things that you wanted to share about your children's boarding experience or your own experience?
Absolutely. I think it's natural for homesickness to happen for any human being, right? It's not even about age. I've experienced homesickness at this late stage in my life, so it happens. Um, and I think uh, I think the team at the boarding house, they just allow a child to, from what I have observed with my two kids, there is this acceptance, this really calming approach to it that allows a kid to find their own independent way to connect with their own strength. Because that to me that pays off because it allows the child to know that they're okay. And I get that I'm okay vibe from both children in both situations. It's just, to me, that's a very empowering place to find your way through that initial bit of homesickness that can happen to them. Um, because that's a powerful space for them to connect with their strength. And once that happens, then it's home. That's just another home for them. And they're at home anywhere they go. That sense of being at home is very strong with them, and it's a wonderful. It's a very their worldview expands. It's just so many things that carry on for life. Like with my older one, I get to see her being that person even today, and it's who she is now, and it's exciting to watch as a parent. So. Yeah. Does that answer the question? Is there anything more specific you would like me to talk about?
No, I think our parents just want to understand the impact that boarding has and the experience that they will have as families. So I think that's really helped them with that.
Okay, great. Happy to help.
No problem. Thanks so much, Priya. And it was
Anytime.
lovely to see you again. I'm sure we'll see you again soon.
Absolutely.
And we
Thank you
really,
so much.
really appreciate your time today.
Anytime.
And so that is what you're signing up for at boarding in UWC. Alongside the challenge of the 5 elements of our holistic learning program, a challenging and transformational residential life experience, supported by a strong team of experienced adults and a caring peer community. This experience will not only change your child, but can change you as a family. And joining UWCSEA is a decision that is to be made by the whole family, buying into the mission, the community experience, and the fostering of values. And I want to say a really special thank you to all of the staff and the parents and the students who shared with us today. And I hope you all learned a little bit more about our boarding community. This is the end of the presentation from the boarding team for this afternoon. And I'm going to hand over to Lucy, our head of marketing and communications, for the Q&A session.
Oh, terrific. Thank you so much, Marcel. And thank you to everybody for joining us today. We're going to have a Q&A session, as Marcel has mentioned. So I'd encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A box if you have some. We have a couple that we can begin with while our guests are thinking about any questions they may wish to answer. So today on our Q&A panel, we have Marcel. We have James, who you've met. We also have Malika, who introduced the session, our Director of Admissions. And we have Caitlin, who is also in charge of our admissions applications. Caitlin, I might just pass over to you to introduce yourself and say hello so that people know who you are before we kick it off.
Hi, thank you, Lucy. Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin. So I'm with the admissions department with the responsibility of handling all the boarding related inquiry as well as applications. So I'm a cross-campus staff. So if you have any questions, please drop them into the box, the chat box, and we'll be happy to assist you. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Caitlin. Whilst we have you, I might start with a question for you, Caitlin. Can you just give us a brief overview of how parents, or what sort of information and where parents can find the information before they make an application for their child's boarding? Just a brief rundown of the process.
All right. So you would like me to give a summary of how to put
Yes,
in?
just a brief summary for parents who are interested in where should they start?
All right. So our admissions process is very much a paperless process. So the link and the access to the online application system is via our school website. So they just click on the admissions page, go through the steps, and you're in. So the first and foremost, put in the online application. And as you know, right now applications are already open for the August 2025 entry. So it's an annual application process. Yeah. So when an application comes in, we will do an initial review of the applications. Now, applicants who do not have English as their first language will be invited to take an online English assessment. And so this is to allow us to have some indication and to determine whether the child has sufficient academic English proficiency to be able to access our middle and high school program. So this assessment must be completed and reviewed before we can move the application to the next stage. And if the applicant does not successfully pass the English assessment, then we'll close the application.
Terrific.
So, and in the next stage of the review process comes the interview. So for grade 8 boarding applicants, they will have to attend a one-to-one online boarding interview with our dear Marcel here. And so it's an online application, online interview. You do not have to come onto the campus for that purpose, right? And then for the high school applicants, meaning the grade 9, 10, and 11th, we'll invite them to attend our very fun virtual immersion program, where they will participate in a discussion forum and activities led by our admissions team, as well as our own high school students. So of course, they will also go through the one-to-one boarding interview with one of our boarding house parents. So applicants who have met our entry criteria for boarding will then be placed into the pool to be considered for an offer during each of our our selection period. So we have 2 selection rounds, one in January and one in March. Okay, and after that, of course, between April and June, if we have any late places that become available, we'll continue to fill them. Yeah. So
Great. Thank
a very brief, yeah.
Sorry, Caitlin, let's get you up.
The process, yeah. I would encourage parents to maybe also watch our webinar called the Admissions Explained, where Malika has done a more detailed explanation on the process as well as entry criteria. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. You beat me to it. I was just going to encourage parents to go and watch that as well for more detailed information. Okay, so we've had a few questions come in around students or boarders being able to leave campus at weekends or during the week. So I might go to Nick and to Marcel. Could you just share a little bit around are our boarders allowed to leave campus, and what are the sort of guidelines around that? Can they go and stay with friends and other relatives within Singapore? And is there a curfew?
Yes, so our students are allowed to leave campus. It's at different times according to their ages, and their curfews to be back on campus would be different according to their age. Some students do stay overnight at families when they're visiting, or if they have a family friend or some friends from school, they're allowed to stay overnight too, as long as they're following the safety processes. So we have safety processes in place where students have to carry a working phone, and they have to submit what we call a leave request through our online portal. For during the week, or if it's not an overnight request, then that can be authorized by boarding staff. But if they are going to stay overnight, the parents also have access to this to approve the fact that they'll be staying overnight at someone else's house. So short answer, yes, our students are allowed to leave campus, and that's also part of them learning their independence and being able to go to the shops and pick up something. Yes.
Great, thank you. Nick, sorry, James, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think the only thing to add is just more about the context, really, that one of the great things about Singapore it is a place where you can feel quite comfortable about students going out and kind of learning independence in a safe environment. And I think we've seen that happen many times, that this is a good environment, a good learning environment for a lot of those life skills.
Absolutely. And we spoke about curfews, technology curfews. Can you just elaborate a little bit more about what that means for students in the boarding house?
Yep, sure. So the younger students have curfews where they have to hand in their electronics every night. We have a safe, lockable space where they can be charged at the same time. For the grade 8 and 9 students, that happens at 9 p.m. On weekends, it's a little later. And then for grade 10 students, that happens at 9:30. And I think the research on the impact of electronics on childhood development is something we're always trying to look at and understand, and try to adjust our policies and our procedures in response to what we're learning, because this is something quite new, and I think it's something that worries a lot of parents. And I think we really enjoy it when we can work in a collaborative way with the parents, so that there's some consistency with what happens here and what happens back home, that gives the child the best, kind of most stable platform from which to learn how to use electronics with sense of responsibility.
Terrific, thank you. Just speaking about the sort of the collaboration between parents and the boarding house staff and the students, can you share a little bit around the interaction and the updates, and how do parents stay connected to their child's boarding experience?
Sure. Yep. And Marcel, come in at any point as well on this, but we have a number of forms of communication with parents. So after your child joins, there'll be, well, before that really, there's lots of communications from school and house parents. We want to make sure that we hopefully see the student and see the parents before everyone arrives. And then there's an update after a short period of them being here, because that's the settling in period, can be quite difficult sometimes for parents and for students. And so we want to communicate very early on in the year with them on that. And then there are regular points through the year where there are emails, there are three-way conferences, which means we have video conferences, video conversations. And I think we try to pass on small notes. If we can take a photo of your son or daughter playing the electric guitar in a band in school, or, you know, we've gone and seen them at the sports event and we've taken a photo there, that kind of thing. But I think underpinning all of this is an open invitation for communication as well. So if you're a parent who really feel that the best thing for your child is you have a really regular update and a video conference, and until you feel confident and comfortable with the boarding stuff, then I think we accommodate that. We try to understand. And we really value partnership in what we're doing, because I think the parents and the staff here, we have the same aim always, which is for your child to flourish. So that happens best if we work together.
Great, thank you, James. Marcel, I'll direct this question to you. What sort of student is suited to boarding life?
We obviously have many different kinds of students, and I think when parents are thinking about whether their child will thrive here, the characteristics of children who thrive here are often ones who communicate really well with their peers, but also adults. I think the sooner we can start a positive adult-child relationship, the smoother that experience is going to be. And definitely some sense of resilience. So I think when you're away from home for the first time in a faraway country, you do need to have some sense of self and some sense of resilience. A lot of our children develop that in the time while they're here, but to have some foundations of that, I think, is very, very important. And then I think part of a student being ready to be here is also if their family is ready for them to be here. And if the family's made that decision and works alongside the house parents to make that experience a positive one for the child, then that goes a long way in knowing that they're ready for boarding as well.
Terrific. And if a family were to relocate into Singapore, what then, and Malika, this is probably best directed at you, what then in terms of the status of that student? Can they then convert to a day student, or what's the process?
So typically, students who start out as boarders and then have families moving here, I think probably in most cases, the student does move out of boarding and become what we call a day transfer. So they're transferring out of boarding to become a day student. However, we do have in our terms and conditions that the commitment to boarding needs to be for a full year. So that is something that families do need to keep in mind. So the commitment is for a full year. So they can then move out of boarding once they have fulfilled that. However, there are also families who do relocate to Singapore, but where the child is really keen to continue in boarding, and we do allow for that. But in that situation, it's really important that the family understands that if they are opting for that arrangement where their child is going to continue to be in boarding, then their boarding student continues to be subject to all of the regular requirements that any other boarder would be governed by. And that includes not sort of disappearing home all the time. And also, very importantly, that the house parents remain in loco parentis, meaning that they are acting on behalf of parents or as the student's parents in that situation. So I think a family opting to do this has to think it through really carefully. And I think, I'm going to leave it to Marcel to add anything that she'd like to about this. But I think that understanding between the parent and the boarding staff has to be really, really solid and really discussed carefully for them to opt for that situation. But it has worked out well, I think, in a few cases where the student and the parents have made that particular choice.
Terrific, thank you. And just on that note, Marcel, a parent has asked, is it compulsory for the boarder to have a local guardian within Singapore?
Well, pretty much all of our families would not have been in Singapore before. And so they may not have the local contacts to put in place a local Singapore guardian. So no, it's definitely not a requirement. We definitely don't recommend putting in place guardians that are not actual family members, because that sometimes prevents us from being able to act in loco parentis in case of emergencies and things like that. So no, definitely no need for a local guardian. When a family joins, they can appoint in loco parentis rights to one of the boarding house staff to act on their behalf in case of emergencies.
Great, thank you. So just thinking about the setup now of the boarding house, can you tell us, Marcel, again, I know we spoke a little bit about this earlier, but if we could just recap around the setup of the rooms. Are they single gender, mixed gender, how many in each room, and does that change as the students progress through the grades?
So it's slightly different across our Dover and East campuses. On our Dover campus, that we have one room type, so that's 4 students in a room. And that's all the way from grade 8 to grade 12. And then the floors in the boarding houses there are divided by gender. So we'll have a female floor and a male floor in each of the boarding houses. On East Campus is a slightly different iteration. So our grade 8 and 9 students start off in a 4-person room. And those are divided into corridors by gender. When they get to grade 11 and 12, it becomes 2 students in a room, which are grouped together in a corridor of 12 students. And then when they get to grade 12, they have the opportunity to be in a single room. And when they're in grade 12, they can choose whether they want to be in a mixed gender corridor or if they would like to be in separate gender corridors.
Great, thank you. And in terms of the duties that students undertake when they're in the boarding house, how does that work? Do they make their own beds? Do they clean their own rooms, their laundry, all those sorts of household duties?
So we definitely expect them to keep their living spaces clean and tidy. So while we have some staff who will come in and sweep and make sure that there's a general level of hygiene in bathrooms and things, their students are expected to make their own beds, to be able to manage their laundry. That doesn't necessarily mean doing it themselves, but we have a company that comes in, but they have to sort their laundry and send it off to the laundry in the right way. And then it comes back to them. We also have house chores, so we expect all students to contribute to the cleanliness of the environment in the boarding house. So they will be responsible for keeping our common areas tidy, for disposing of our compostable waste appropriately, maintaining our bicycles. And so they learn to contribute to the community at the same time as keeping it clean as well.
Thanks, Marcel. We have time for a couple more questions. So I'm going to just talk about what happens when your child gets sick in the boarding house. Can you tell parents how that is managed, please? Or if they have an accident, for example?
So for routine illnesses, they can visit our college clinic, and we have a doctor in on the weekdays, a GP. And if the GP feels that it's something that requires a specialist referral, then the house staff will accompany students to the specialist at a separate time. Singapore has a wide panel of hospitals and clinics and specialists to draw on. If it's something that's more emergency related, so let's say they've been in a sports match and they've happened to break their leg, in those situations, the house parent on duty will take the student to the nearest A&E, emergency departments, and get immediate treatment. So we are about 15 minutes away from the nearest A&E here on East, and Dover is about 5 to 10 minutes away from the nearest A&E.
Terrific. So a question is coming around managing the juggle between schoolwork and activities and so on. So if the question from this parent is, are boarding students expected to participate in all these activities, or how do you ensure that students keep on top of their school responsibilities and also their other commitments?
James, you want to take this one?
Sure. So no, they don't have to do all the activities because there's over 600, I think. So that will be a tall order. The students work with their mentor and also their house parent to look at the different activities available and to select an appropriate kind of load. Now, what sometimes happens is new students come in with a lot of enthusiasm and they sign up for maybe more that they can handle, and they only find that out after a few weeks. But then that just means they take that learning, they have a conversation, and they maybe reduce the number of activities. I think that balance and learning how to balance those things is also part of them growing up and gaining independence and working out where they want to put their emphasis and focus. And I think that through this process, they kind of come out with a good foundation for the same process that then goes and happens at universities when there's lots of clubs and lots of things to sign up for. So I think it's a good continuous learning. And I'd say one of the nicest things I've seen this year with a couple of the students is them starting a service maybe or an activity in grade 9 and following it through and building it up and seeing progression in the service or the activity over a period of 3 or 4 years. I think there's been some great stuff there and some great initiatives, new initiatives from students. So it is possible to manage, and we help them and we guide them, and their mentors do in school as well. And together, I think we get them through, the choice of activities and so on.
Terrific. 2 final questions before we wrap up. I'm just conscious of time, but these are great questions. The first one is just around food and different dietary requirements. So who would like to pick that up, Marcel or James?
I can take it. So yes, we have students with a wide range of dietary restrictions, often allergies or cultural expectations around what they can and can't eat. It's really important that families communicate this with us when they fill in their online health screenings. And then we can work with our catering provider to make sure that every student can have a meal that they would like to eat during the day. But we do have the what's the word? The provision to be able to cater for the vast majority of allergens and dietary restrictions.
And do students eat together across the grades? Is it like a dining hall where all the students come together, or do they eat separately?
So breakfast and dinners, all the boarding students will eat together across the grades, so from grade 8 to grade 12. And then during the school day, they'll eat lunch with the rest of the day students in the school canteen at the different grade lunch times.
Great. Thank you. And the final question, which is a terrific question, and I'm sorry that we don't have time to answer all the questions that have come through today. It's been a very busy Q&A session, but this is just regarding the school holidays. So during vacations, can students stay in the boarding house if they can't come back to their home country?
So we do close the boarding houses twice a year. So we have a longer break in December and a longer break in June. At those times of the year, students will need to return home to their families. And it's important for students to see their families as much as they can during the year. In our shorter breaks in October and Lunar New Year and April, there is the option to remain in the boarding houses, though on a bit of a reduced scale, as the vast majority of our students will travel home, and there is an extra cost associated with staying in the boarding houses over the break.
Terrific. Okay, that's unfortunately all we have time for in terms of the Q&A, but thank you to all our parents today for all their fabulous questions. I'm going to pass you back now to Malika to close off the session and point you to where you can find out more information. Thank you, Malika, and thank you, Marcel and James and Caitlin.
Thanks, Lucy. And I'd like to add my thanks to everyone who participated in the webinar, particularly Marcel and James for your responses, and also, of course, to our students who joined us and our parent. Before we go, this is for the audience. If you could bear with me for just another couple of minutes, we'd love to get some quick feedback from you. And I'm going to share my screen and show you a QR code which we would invite you to scan to give us some feedback on our session today. And in terms of getting more information, the best place I can direct you to would be the college website, as well as the admissions website hosted on our college webpage. So we would love to have you dive into that material. There's lots of great information there. And a final plug for this week's high school on-campus open days. If you happen to be in Singapore, we would welcome you to register and join us for the Dover High School Day tomorrow and the East High School on-campus open day this Thursday. So if you could scan this QR code and give us a quick bit of feedback about your experience of today's webinar, we would really appreciate it. Thank you very much for giving up your time to join us this afternoon. We'll just leave this QR code up for a few more minutes, and then we will see you soon, we hope. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon or evening wherever you are.